Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. Today we've got another private pilot mock check ride for you today. But before we get into that, do you like The Office? The duck army is finally on display. Look at it, there's so many ducks back. This is my new favorite ones. But that's not why you guys come to this channel. Most of y'all don't even know that I had an army of ducks. Today we've got a private pilot mock check ride, and this guy is actually an MMA coach. And well, it was a little bit of a struggle for him to get his medicals. We talked a little bit about that. I know a lot of the people that watch this channel aren't really aware that I lost my medical for about 2 years. So hearing this student's story about how they had to fight through the process of getting their medical and actually getting what's known as a SOTA, or a statement of demonstrated ability showing that they can safely operate an aircraft, was kind of refreshing that it was such an easy process for them. It's nice to hear when the FAA is reasonable with people and ensures that they can fly and do what they love and do what they want to do because they can do it safely. So this student did all right. All right. There's like most students, they had a little bit that they needed to study. Like most students, we had to brush up on some stuff. And like most students, they went away knowing, hey, not perfect, but I've got a direction to travel. I've got a path that I can take to get myself ready for a check ride. And that's really what mock check rides are for. How do we see where we are currently at, and how do we compare that to where we're trying to go? And what steps do we need to take to make these two things meet? But before we get into that, we do have a slight sponsor message before the mock check ride starts. So let's roll the sponsor and then get into the mock check ride. Here's the thing. I always recommend that a student does their ground training with their flight instructor, but I recognize that flight training is expensive. Now, I hate 90% of the online ground training that is out there. I think most of it is horrible, and it trains you to pass a test. That's not what Pilot Institute does. Pilot Institute not only checks that box, but ensures that you are getting out there with the knowledge to be a safe pilot. So if you're looking for some ground training, right now I recommend Pilot Institute. So working on private pilot, before we hit those record buttons, we did have a couple conversations. As a lot of people know, the FAA, the Friends Against Aviation, their stance on aeromedical can be a little tough to fight through, whether or not you agree on how the FAA handles aeromedical. Everybody can agree that the time frame and the waiting isn't appropriate. So, I mean, we talked about it a little bit before. Do you mind talking about, your fight with the wonderful Friends Against Aviation on getting your medical?
Yeah. So, kind of start everything, I had a drone pilot license, and I was like, man, I went through a lot of this stuff already. So I might as well continue doing this stuff. My grandfather flew planes. He had a little Piper J Cub, and he had a Taylorcraft or a T-Craft, and that was like always seemed really fun for me to enjoy that. When I was 15, I actually lost my vision, my eye, from football, and so I'm blind in my right eye, and never really thought that it was an option. But then kind of looked into it, and it was like, well, there's these SOTA things, and maybe we can actually make this happen. And so went through the process of actually doing the written test beforehand, just to be like, hey, am I even able to like think about this appropriately? And then I'm like, yep, got like a 93 on my test. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And so kind of went the back way of this and thought very stupid. Like, I went to the first flight school, and it's kind of funny where the guy's like, hey, you might want to get your medical first before you start putting all this money into flight training. And I was like, well, that's dumb. Like, this is going to take like a week, and we'll be fine with this. So I'm just going to start, doing all this stuff. And so I started training and waited and waited and waited. And so it was like, I think almost like 9 or 10 months before they came back and they said, hey, nope, we're not going to allow this because of this. And if you think that's incorrect, you can send back some more documentation. So I sent more documentation about my eye. Went to a couple eye doctor specialists, and they filled out a bunch of forms from the FAA, sent that back, and the FAA still said, nope, yep, this is, but if you feel like you can do it with just the one eye, here's your chance to do a SOTA. And that came about, I think that was probably, the paper came in March, and then in May, had to go out to my FSDO and actually do the flight test. But it was kind of crazy because I'm glad I did the flight training before I tried to do uh, do the flight test, because otherwise I wouldn't have had any training. So it was weird because it ended up almost being like a mock check ride before the mock check ride. So
Yeah. And for
um,
those of you wondering, a SOTA, it's a statement of demonstrated ability, correct?
yep, and it was it was hilarious. Like, I hope he's okay with me saying this, but our local FSDO guy was actually really great. So he, you have to do your weight and balance, and it was kind of funny because he sent me, like, I'd never met this guy before, and I texted him, I was like, hey, I need your weight for the weight and balance, and he's like 100 pounds, and I'm like, what do you mean 100? Like, you're a grown man. And then, like,
Yeah.
so I'm like, are you? So I text him back, I'm like, are you sure about this? And he's like, yep. And so we get there, meet him, super nice guy. Come to find out, he's a quadriplegic, right?
Oh,
And
wait.
so,
So,
so he's like, man, if you think you had it tough, I have a first class medical, and I'm a quadriplegic. So I was just like, oh, and so ended up being a super nice guy. We had a great, but it was kind of hilarious that, like, that was how I got introduced into the world of sodas. So
yeah. And I mean, that's what I've definitely noticed, like going through, because I fought for my medical as well for like 2 years. It was an absolute disaster. But like when you get to your local FAA, like you did, the FSDO, the Flight Standard District Office, most people there are generally reasonable people. It's just
yeah,
once you get to like and, Oklahoma City, that it can seem like there's this huge wall of disconnect where they just don't want to engage with you, right?
yeah, and especially now, I think the other times when I've been asked, yeah, I would ask, like, my regional office, like, hey, is there anything? It was hilarious where, like, they would come back and they would say, hey, look, these things take a long time, and then they would look at my thing and it was like, 14 months or whatever, and they're like, oh, all right, so yeah, this is kind of on us at this point. Where I'm like, it's not like I've been waiting a week; it's like 14
Yeah.
months of just kind of waiting. So it was
Well,
kind
and
of
I
tough.
mean,
Like,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I
It
was
was
saying
difficult.
that. All right.
All right.
It's all you.
Okay, so I was just gonna say that it's been difficult on my training, where I feel like money definitely became a thing where my goal was to go 3 or 4 times a week and really hit it hard, but then obviously I can't sustain that for 2 years of training, and so, like, really had to say, okay, we're gonna fly once every 2 weeks, and I feel like that made my progression a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, waiting on the FAA, you hear the horror stories all the time. And I mean, if you saw the aviation rulemaking committee that happened, like, I think it was like December of 2024 or 2023. Like, I mean, they had somebody from inside the FAA saying that their medical was held up because they asked for their VA records, their Veterans Affairs
Yeah.
records. The person they were asking was never in the military.
Or somehow affiliated with somebody that was in the military that would know that, like, hey, you're that, yeah. So
Yeah. So beyond that, beyond the fight with the FAA, things are changing. You've got Pilots Mental Health Campaign, you got ALPA. They're all fighting to get aeromedical reform, which is desperately needed. Um, but beyond all that, we're working on private pilot. So you've taken what you said about 2 years to get this all done.
yeah, it's you know yeah, just about 2 years.
Awesome, awesome. So we are going from Yankee 14 to K Rep. I'm looking at your nav log. It's great. We'll talk about all of that later. When you do go in for a check ride, right? There's always it's the same script no matter what DPE you go to. It's almost like it's almost like it's FAA mandated, but there's three possible outcomes to every check ride. You got satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory really just means you're consistently within inside the standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't momentarily fall outside the standards. If you do fall outside the standards, apply a prompt and appropriate correction to get yourself back within the standards, right? People think like, oh, if I end up 1 foot too long, or, if I end up 1 knot too slow, the check ride's over. Oh my God, I've failed, right? Unless in most cases, unless the DPE says so out loud, as long as the airplane's still moving, you haven't failed. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as long as the airplane's still moving, and as long as the DPE hasn't told you you failed, you haven't failed. So keep on trucking through no matter what you think is going on.
Then you've got incomplete. Incomplete is really just, aircraft airworthiness that you notice like during pre-flight, right? You walked out to the airplane and one of the fuel sumps is dribbling fuel. Well, obviously you notice that in pre-flight. We're not going to continue the check ride. Also, illness. Okay. If you wouldn't go do this flight normally, don't do it when you're about to go take your check ride, right? A lot of people think, oh, I was waiting on my DPE for 3 weeks, 4 weeks or what have you. I need to get this done. Even though I'm exhausted after that 2.5 hour oral, I'm going to go fly anyway. Nope. It's your check ride too. It's not just the DPE's check ride. If you're tired, let them know. Maybe you could just take a break, right? An hour, 2 hour break, go get some lunch, come back at it. You don't necessarily need to go right one after the other. If you need to incomplete, it's you can call an incomplete as well. Then you've got unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory is really just you don't meet the standards. You're consistently outside the standards. You're a danger to yourself. You're a danger to the national airspace system. You exceed aircraft limitations. You put either the DPE or you in kind of a precarious situation, right? Um, and the last question any DPE is going to ask before they get into anything is: have you read the ACS, the Airman Certification Standards, and you understand the standards that you're being held to?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So I like to dig into systems. And before we dig into that, I do just want to show how I'm navigating this. And this isn't something that I built. This came from the student. All right. So I'm going to go to my desk. And this is his spreadsheet that he uses for every flight, right? So we've got the nav log, and we'll talk about that in a second. We've got a go, no go checklist that goes through everything that you really need to be doing before you get in an airplane. And then right up here, you've got the POH, and I pulled it up in the Google Drive along with associated NOTAMs, takeoff data, logbook, weight and balance, weather. And then we also have some written missed questions that we're going to be discussing on this mock check ride. But again, this is everyone talks about that check ride binder, right? Everyone talks about, oh, I built a check ride binder. I built a check ride binder where I show up with all of my documents in order. This could very easily be taken as a digital check ride binder, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to require all of my students for these mock check rides to only use this format from now on.
I'll take it.
uh,
Yeah, like we
so,
were talking earlier that it's I very much like having stuff in kind of in order just because the having a day-to-day job as a coach, and possibly, I don't know, as I get older, maybe turning into a CFI. Really just wanting to try to nail some of that stuff down so I don't have to think about a lot of it.
yeah, and I mean, I definitely see out as a CFI when I look in like the Part 61 or kind of the cowboy environment of flight instruction. A lot of instructors struggle with keeping their students kind of organized. Not necessarily their students' problem, but like the CFI is like, wait a minute, who are you and what are we doing today?
Right.
Right. And if you're already a private pilot at that level, you're not going to be running into those issues. Um, and given the level of preparation, I'm looking forward to seeing like where the knowledge is, and I'm assuming at this point you'll be able to navigate any kind of source material pretty easily as well. So we're in a Piper Warrior PA 28 151. So what can you tell me about the power plant that runs this airplane?
So it's a Lycoming 0320, and it is air cooled, naturally aspirated, direct drive, horizontally opposed. I know that they have an STC, and that's something that so we're flying in a new plane that I haven't looked at the log books or anything for the maintenance books, should say. It has an STC to go from 150 to 160 horsepower,
Awesome, awesome,
and it's
awesome.
carbureted.
All right. Now, since you brought up an STC, what is an STC?
But STC is just so the plane came from the factory with these items. If we added something new, so if we added that Garmin 430 or the G5s in there, um, if we change the horsepower for somehow, we have to have an STC to be able to explain and have the documentation for it in the plane.
Okay. Okay. So, when I'm talking about an STC, does this mean like we've all seen those Honda Civics with the fart can exhaust and the big old turbo and whatnot on it?
Yep.
Can I just do stuff like that to an airplane as long as I document it well enough, or is an
So in
STC
this
something else?
So an SEC supplemental type certificate, for the most part, would have like you have to get that approved through the FAA. I do have some questions on that as far as experimental. I feel like experimental, you're allowed to do more things, but I'm not sure if okay, we still have to obviously abide by the rules at the FAA, but I know with your Cessnas, your Pipers, things like that, obviously it has to be your STCs, and I think that as far as the experimentals, not 100% clear on some of that.
Well, let's talk about it then, since we're already here. An STC, it's a supplemental type certificate. It is a piece of equipment and also the instructions on how to install it and maintain it and use it that the FAA has approved. So Garmin has their STCs, Dynon, Avidyne, they have their STCs. This isn't me as the owner saying, hey, I think we should do something to this airplane. Let's call the FAA and get it approved. That
Yep.
would be more as known as a field approval, where I've altered my airplane in some kind of way that doesn't have an STC associated with it. And the FAA comes out and says, yeah, sure. Like it doesn't really impact the safety of the aircraft, right?
Sure.
Some field approvals are things like smoke kits, right? Smoke kits are
Yeah.
viewed in the context of visual identification, so they help with the separation of traffic, right? Let's
Yeah.
be honest. That's not what they're used for.
It's just going to be used for showing off and having fun.
Yeah.
But
But that would be kind of a field approval because there's no such thing as a smoke. There's no smoke kit that has an STC,
right.
right?
Okay.
Now on the experimental side, it says it right in the name. You're experimenting,
Yeah.
right?
And so,
When you build an experimental, the FAA does come out and do like an airworthiness inspection and they issue you that airworthiness certificate. But at that point, they've kind of said, yes, this airplane is an airplane as long as the wings stay attached and the fuselage stays in one piece. It's an airplane. You wanna throw that AutoZone battery in it? You wanna, I might be a little exaggerating, but
yeah.
if it's a home built experimental airplane, it's a home built experimental airplane. You're experimenting.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Now, what you can do with an experimental airplane is we could dig into that later, but unless do you plan on buying an experimental airplane?
No, it was just more like that. It's surprising to me that, okay, on one side, we're very regulatory, and on the other side, it's like, all right, well, we can pretty much, since it's experimental, you can kind of do as you please kind of thing. So it seemed
And
kind of crazy to me. So,
I agree, right? It's frustrating because like you look at like the experimental parts and they're half the price of the FAA of the certified parts, even though in many cases they're the exact same part.
right. They've just had to
Right.
go through the regulation through the FAA.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a long drawn out process and it costs money. But the fact that it says in big letters, like the FAA has I forget what the size requirement is, but it's like you have to have
Experimental.
absolutely obnoxious within clear view of the entryway of the aircraft. This is an experimental aircraft and it does not meet the standard airworthiness requirements.
Okay.
Right. And I think you even have to explain that during your passenger brief, right? Because a passenger brief is required for everybody that's getting in an airplane. You have to explain, hey, this is an experimental airplane. It does not meet the standard airworthiness requirements, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Okay. Imagine the flight attendant doing that. Hey, welcome on our 777. It is an experimental. No.
If you choose to exit, here you go.
So talking about that engine, you said it's carbureted, right? What are kind of some of the downsides of having a carbureted airplane?
So downsides would be carburetor icing. It's less fuel efficient, and not quite as much, or you won't get as much power out of that as you would in fuel injected.
Okay. Yeah. Not as efficient. Carburetor icing. Now, can you kind of talk to me? How would you identify carburetor icing?
Sure. So carburetor icing would be a lowering of RPMs, and then after, if I didn't notice it through that, it would be the engine roughness. And if it's to the point of engine roughness, we're pretty rough at this point. And so if that happened, I would throw on the carb heat, expect it to get worse because now we're just turning that ice into water. And then after that, it should start to get better and the RPM should start to come up. So should still see a RPM decrease and then increase after that. So a couple weeks ago when I was doing my solo cross country, it's South Dakota, so we're very cold weather at this point, and I'm just sitting here looking at that for carburetor icing, just checking every like 2 seconds, like, okay, yep, all right, yep, that RPM hasn't gone down at all. So
Well, all right. So let's talk about maybe a little bit more of the conditions that might be conducive to carburetor icing, because my understanding of South
yeah,
Dakota is it's not very humid there, right?
correct. Yeah, so we'd have to have visible moisture usually to get some of that icing in there, or I should say, yeah, we'd have to have moisture in order to get that icing.
Okay. So
Or
is it
high,
visible moisture?
so high humidity, so like above uh, high humidity and anywhere from, they say like -20 to 70 uh, but degrees Fahrenheit. But for me, I feel like we get -20, uh, below -20 here in South Dakota. So I'm still pretty sure I'm going to pick up icing at that point as well. So
Well, let's talk about that below -20, right? Below -20. Do
we're
we
not flying.
understand? Well, it's not that we're not flying. It's that above that temperature, I know there's some temperatures and we could talk about those. But for the most part, above -20, ice can't accumulate, ice can't form unless it has something to freeze to.
Okay.
Below -20, it doesn't require a condensation nuclei, right? It
Okay.
doesn't require something to freeze to. It can free H2O can freeze to itself, right?
Okay.
But above -20, H2O needs something to freeze to. So if we're below -20, we're not really concerned about carburetor icing because the water's already frozen. It
Okay.
can't freeze to my carburetor if it's already frozen,
Because yeah, it's okay.
right?
That makes sense.
Um, so the higher the humidity, the higher the temperature in which it can occur, right? So that positive 70 degrees, like that just sounds like a nice day. Like I set my heater to that, right?
Right.
But if it's positive 70 degrees and 80% humidity, that's when we start getting carburetor icing as well. Um, now talked about how we identify it, how to deal with it. Now, what kind of fuel does this airplane actually carry?
1-800 or 1-800 100 low lead.
100 low lead. Does it take? Can it take any other gas?
Um, I don't believe so. I gotta look through the POH. But I know that some of them you can get an SCC for, like MoGas, um, and but ours would just be the 100 low lead
100 low lead. And what color is that fuel?
blue.
Blue. Now, if I came out to this airplane, I sumped the tank, and I saw maybe like a kind of a yellowy color, maybe a little bit more on the clear side than yellow. Think like really hydrated kind of color.
Sure. So if it's really hydrated, it could be water in there from condensation. Could also be somebody put gas in there, or like traditional gas from uh, gas pump. And then I believe if it was uh, clear, then it could also be something like a Jet A, or something like that. But
Yep. Now, let's say that you found some Jet A in this airplane, right? You sumped it, you saw a little bit of yellow, maybe a little clear in there. What would you do?
so we'd have to continue sumping that until we didn't see any more through there, until we just saw when we sumped it another time and it ran completely blue.
Okay. When it comes to fuel
And
contamination, I usually err on the side of, hey, let's drain the whole system,
sure,
because we don't know if it's gotten down into the gasculator, the fuel selector. We don't know how far this contamination might have gone. A little bit of water isn't going to kill anything, right? We can sump that until it's empty, and then if some water gets into the injector, yeah, it's not the best, right? The engine's
yeah,
going to stumble a little bit, but as long as we can run it clear with water, we're fine. When it comes to fuel contamination, uh, the seals don't necessarily agree with each other, right? Imagine,
yeah,
soaking a diesel injector in regular old gasoline. I mean, those seals are going to deteriorate,
okay.
right? Um, but at the very least, we're looking for a clear system. Now, how much fuel does this thing carry?
So it has 50 gallons, 48 of it is usable.
Now, is there any reason that some of it's not usable? Like, what are they trying to accomplish there?
Sure. So with some of the older planes, and then just in general, they'll get some of the sediment that'll go to the bottom, or as I open that up and I pour that, after I sump, maybe I pour that back in, I get some of the contamination that goes into that tank. That's generally going to go down to the bottom, and we don't want to be sucking that sediment in from the bottom.
Yeah. So what do they design into the airplane? How do they make it so that the airplane doesn't suck up that sediment?
So that it pulls from just a little bit higher. So there's always going to be that probably 1 gallon on each tank that it can't get to.
Awesome.
So that
Awesome.
pickup is just a little bit higher than the bottom of the tank.
Now, let's dig a little bit more into this airplane's systems, right? This airplane has heat, right?
Yep.
Where does it get that heat from?
So it comes off the exhaust manifold, the shroud off of there. So there's a uh, intake that comes in and goes to it can go to my defrost. It can go to the cabin heat, um, and then we can also it goes to portion of it goes to the carburetor for the carburetor heat.
Awesome, awesome. Now, is there any concern? Is there any risk associated with heating my cabin with air that flows around my exhaust?
Yeah, so if I have a crack in my exhaust manifold, if there's, I might get carbon monoxide poisoning in the cabin off of that.
Okay, how would you identify the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning?
So if I start feeling sleepy, maybe if I have start to get some blue on my extremities, um, that would be a rough one at that point. But usually some drowsiness, starting to get sleepy, just a mental fog.
Awesome, awesome. So, with your airplane, again, I'm looking at the air induction system right here. Um, how would you deal with this? Like, let's say you opened up the heat, started to notice that drowsiness, maybe a little blue fingertips. What's your next solution? What's your next steps?
Sure, I would turn that off at that point. Try to open up some of uh, my windows and get down to a lower altitude if I could, just to try to get some of that carbon monoxide out of the car or out of the plane. And then most likely, me personally, I'd be looking for a place to land until we can make sure that we get that fixed.
Okay. Now, there's we could open up some windows if we've got like those little windows. I know some of these pipers they have a little limitation on that little smoker's window that you've got on that window on that side. Is there anywhere else where I could get some fresh air? Is there any other system I might be able to turn on?
Um, Try to think of
Yeah, we can just take a look at
yep. Okay.
the ventilation diagram real quick. I just pulled it up. We
Okay.
got this little fan back here, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I
So
can
then that
I can turn
pulls.
that fan on, right?
Okay. And then get some
Um,
air from.
Yeah, we can get some air from that little intake right up there at the top of the rudder, right? That's going to be the cleanest, freshest air I can get from this airplane. Sure, we've got that little window we can open up right there. We get these little vents that come in through the wing. So I'm really going to try and get as much fresh air in this airplane as possible. That's really what we're going for.
Okay.
Um, Now, is there any hydraulic systems on this airplane?
Just the brakes.
Just the brakes. Now, when we're doing our pre-flight, we need to take a peep at those brakes. What are we really looking for?
To make sure that there's no crack in the brake line, that there's no pooling of like a red fluid underneath. And then when we're doing our pre-flight stuff, we want to make sure that those brakes, when I press on them, that they feel firm and they don't feel like too spongy, or I can push it all the way to the floor with no problem. There's no resistance.
Awesome, awesome. So what color fluid are we looking for the possibility of a leak? Like if I just see that it's wet down there next to the wheel, is that
Yep,
indicating of a go ahead?
it'd be red. So,
Okay. Awesome. Um Now let's get a little bit into the electrical system. What can you tell me about the electrical system that kind of powers this airplane and powers the avionics?
sure. So it is a 12 volt alternator, 12 or and a 12-volt battery, um, a 60 amp alternator, and um, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So let's say that my does this thing have a low voltage light, a ammeter that shows negative and positive?
So it has both a low voltage through the annunciator light, and then also it has an ammeter.
Awesome. Awesome. So, um, let's say that I'm looking over at my ammeter and I see it's at like 0.5 amps positive. Is
Okay.
this a good thing, bad thing? Is this nothing I should be
Um,
worried about?
so it just means that so I'm just barely charging we're pretty much at the capacity of um, what that alternator can do. So chances are I probably have a lot of things that are connected to it, and for some reason it's pulling a lot of volts, and so it's not basically we're not able to efficiently charge that battery.
Okay, so an ammeter is really just showing here. We can pull it up on the wiring diagram. We can see where it is in line and do I mean what's known as a little bit of a power flow. Can I draw on this? No, I cannot. All right, so we've got our alternator right here and the main line that comes out of our alternator. Okay, this main line that comes out of our alternator goes straight through the ammeter. So that ammeter, what it's showing us is how much amperage is actually flowing through our system.
Yeah.
That's really all it's showing us. It's showing us that I'm really only using zero point 0.5 amps,
Okay.
right? I don't have a whole lot of pull. I don't have a whole lot going on. Um, yeah, sorry, I went the wrong way. Ammeter goes to master solenoid, goes to starter solenoid, goes to your main bus. Now, if I saw, do you have a over voltage light or no?
I don't believe so.
Don't believe so. Okay, so let's say we're cruising along fat, dumb, and happy. Nothing really bad going on, and our alternator warning light pops on. What's my next course of action?
So I'd want to look at the ammeter and see what's going on. After that, we'd want to look for anything that's pulling too much power from that. Um, Start to um, look for, if we have something plugged into there. Otherwise, if we continue to have like a negative charge on that, we could try resetting that alternator. Trying to think of other
Oh, so
options
you've
off
got
that.
a circuit breaker that says alternator field, correct?
Yes. Yep.
What if that's popped?
That most likely it's the we've over exceeded the voltage on that circuit breaker.
Okay. Am I going to try and reset this
No.
in flight?
Um,
Okay.
no, because I'm gonna basically that it's already saying that we're over the voltage that it would have. So chances are, if I put that back in, we're gonna have a fire, or I could.
Okay.
There's a chance of a fire.
Now it's amperage that blows the circuit breaker, not voltage, right?
Okay. Sorry.
Um, I know it can sound a little semantics. Voltage is kind of like the pressure behind it. Amperage is how much of it's actually flowing. I use the water example, right? Um, Voltage is kind of like how much water has built up behind a dam. Amperage is how much water we're letting out of the dam,
Okay.
right? Um, so if I'm seeing, 14 volts on my ammeter, I guess let's talk about those numbers that are on your circuit breakers. Those numbers that are on your circuit breakers are letting you know what amperage is going to pop those. All right. And your alternator field
Right.
circuit is usually about 5 amps.
Right.
But that's showing us, hey, we've lost our alternator. Now, what's your next course of action? We've decided that, we're not going to reset that circuit breaker because we don't want to risk a fire. Is your engine going to die, or like what are we concerned about now that our alternator's dead?
The engine won't die. Luckily, we have the G5s in there, so those have an internal battery of about 4 hours. So I'll still have my attitude, my HSI, my speed, all that. The things that I could lose, I would say that we still have a battery for about 30 minutes. And so, depending on how far if I'm close to the airport, then we can just land as soon as practical and try to get that alternator fixed. If I still, if I'm on a cross country, I might want to turn my lights off, turn my radio off to try to conserve as much of my battery life until I get closer to the airport that I want to land at that has services. And then once I get close to there, I turn those back on. So, like I said, I'm only going to have, at best maybe 30 minutes of useful uh, battery life.
Okay. Now, are we going to lose any flight controls if we lose our entire electrical system?
If it was on a Cessna, I would lose my flaps. I believe on this one we have manual flaps. I would lose my so we have like the little trim on my like the thumb on my yoke. But then I should still just be able to go reach between the legs, probably uh, uh, adjust it from that trim wheel between the seats.
Awesome, awesome. Are we going to lose any kind of indicators? Are we going to? So we already talked about we have our G5, so we're going to
Yep.
keep pretty much all of our instruments. Are we going to lose any kind of aerodynamic indication?
So I'm going to lose my turn coordinator. So that's because we've removed all the vacuum system from this particular plane. So the only thing I think that's indicating off of there is going to be the turn coordinator. So I'm going to lose that one.
Okay. I mean, the G5s have turn coordinators up at the top of them
Yeah.
as well. Is your stall horn still going to work?
No.
No, right. So just keep those kind of things in mind. If we lose our electrical system, you're not going to get any kind of stall indication. I know I was reaching for that. I was like, how do I explain this without just giving him the answer? But yeah, so it's little things like that. Now what's keeping our airplane running? Like if I lose my whole electrical system, like I mean, I needed my battery to get the airplane started. Why is my airplane still running?
So the starter started the engine, which then runs magnetos, and so the magnetos on that or create the current for the spark plugs for the engine.
Awesome, awesome.
So
Uh, and as long as the engine's rotating, magnetos are sparking, and since I got a carburetor, like fuel's flowing, right?
yep.
Awesome. So, let's talk a little bit more about some limitations of this airplane. So, what's this airplane's maximum weight that you can, just the max weight that you can put in this airplane?
Well, I'm a big guy, so it's uh, 2325, I believe. So 2,325, I think.
Okay. Now, what is that the max takeoff weight?
Yeah, that would be the max takeoff weight and max ramp weight, I believe.
Awesome, awesome. So, I see you've got on your weight and balance, right? You've got empty weight, your empty weight arm, and your empty weight moment. Where did you get that information from?
So originally it was from, they would have been from a POH, but then they have I believe a type certificate and then the actual plane's weight and balance that's in with the plane.
Awesome, awesome. So that's your basic empty weight. That empty weight CG, that empty weight is your basic empty weight. What's included in the basic empty weight?
So included with the basic empty weight is the plane as it is with the oil and then the unusable fuel.
Okay. So if I've got an iPad mount that like suction cups to the window, is that included in the basic empty weight?
Uh, the Oh man, that's a good question. Um, I would say no, because it's going to be the airframe um, and the like I said the unusable fuel and the gas.
Awesome, awesome, right? It's pretty much everything that's bolted into the airplane, right? So auxiliary stuff like iPad mounts, they got the ones that clamp to the yoke and the suction cup and stuff like that. Um, awesome. Now, what is center of gravity and why does it
Uh,
matter to our airplane?
sure. So center of gravity is if we held that plane up by a string or you know from a point, it would balance on that point. And so we use that um, to so the plane's going to move around that center, and so we use that. So say if we want to get a higher cruise speed and better fuel efficiency, maybe we put the weight more after the CG uh, uh, to because we need to conserve gas and uh, get a higher cruise speed.
Okay, so aerodynamically speaking, what's happening to give me that better cruise speed?
So the by putting that weight more aft, the back of, or like my stabulator doesn't have to work as hard. And so it's easier for trying to think of like how to like, uh, yeah, that like I'm not having to put as much control force into that stabulator. And so it's more fuel efficient, and I'm able to get a better cruise speed.
All right. There's one thing that a lot of students kind of forget. Like, you are correct, but that's kind of half the answer, right? Because it's not just the stabulator, just the tail. I know it's a Cessna, but potato. So you are correct. I moved my CG back. As you can see, our drag decreases, or our downforce right here decreases, right? As I move my CG forward, we can see that downforce increases and decreases as I move my CG forward. But what we could also talk about, what we're also forgetting, is the separation between the CG and the center of lift, right? So my center of lift is generally behind my center of gravity, so that my airplane can kind of do this little balancing act, right? Makes it more stable. But as I move my CG farther forward, away from my center of lift, what ends up happening is I end up with this big old arm, or this big old torque about my center of lift. So my center of lift is effectively picking up more weight. And you can see as my center of gravity moves forward, my airplane has to fly at a higher angle of attack to maintain that same weight. This entire time, we're, let's say, 2,200 pounds, right? No weight is changing. We're only moving the weight forward, right? So as I move my weight forward, I end up with this moment, or this arm, or this torque about my center of lift, requiring my center of lift to work harder, requiring a higher angle of attack for the same weight, right? So correct, tail generates more downforce, but also the wing has to generate more lift given the torque that the center of gravity is putting on the center of lift. Right. And if you wanted to play around with that, it's just bold method / CFI tools. What I'll do, copy, we'll drop it in the chat here. Now, just be a little wary of some of these tools. There's some of these CFI tools on bold method. As you can tell, there's absolutely no context. There's nothing else on this page. Okay. So just be wary of it. If you got questions, if you're looking at these CFI tools and you got questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. All right.
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. So this airplane's got some specific speeds that you climb at, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So we have our VX and our VY. Our VX is going to be 73. Our VY is going to be 75. VX would give us our best angle of climb. So say if we needed to get over an obstacle, and VY would be our best rate of climb. So the fastest we would be able to get out at that altitude, the altitude that we wanted.
Okay. Now, is it 73 for the VX?
Sorry, 75. My bad. 63 for the VX and 75 for the VY.
Awesome. Now, does that change if I'm doing like a soft field takeoff?
Yes. So we would do, I believe with this one, we're going to climb out at like a 52, and then then we would go at our VX and then to our VY.
Okay. How long am I going to hold that 52? Like, what am I waiting for?
On a soft field, for us, they have us fly just over the runway, but we're just basically trying to pick up speed as we're kind of floating, just or excuse me, on the 52. On a soft field.
Like, what am I trying to climb? Like, if I'm climbing out
Yeah.
at 52, there's a reason for it. Like, what am I trying
Yep.
to do?
On the basically, there's like maybe an obstacle that's going to be in front of us that we're trying to avoid.
Awesome. Right. That 52 is just flaps 25 VX.
Okay.
Right. That's all it is. Right. But it's nice that you know the difference. That, you know,
Sure.
when you do introduce flaps, it does change your VX. So what are flaps doing?
So it's changing the camber of the wing. And so with that, we're just introducing more uh, drag and so yeah, induced drag and more lift.
Right. So it's increasing the camber, right? The upper camber of the wing. The greater my upper camber, the more lift I generate at lower air speeds, right? But that trade off is that I'm increasing my drag.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what is the top of that green tape or that green arc on your airspeed indicator? What is that showing me?
My clean configuration stall speed.
Top of the green arc, highest speed.
Oh, top of the green arc would be um, the. Gosh, what am I? Um, I believe my max. Uh, yeah, max normal operation speed.
Okay. So what do I need to actually go above this speed safely? What needs to happen?
Needs to have clean air.
Right. Clean, smooth air. Um, Now, what about that white arc? What's the top of that white arc showing me?
When I can introduce flaps.
Solid. Um, Now, I see this thing has a maximum demonstrated crosswind velocity of 17 knots. Is
Yep.
this a limitation of the airplane?
No, no. So it's just that it's been demonstrated to do that to be able to handle that 17 knot effectively.
Okay. Now, what's your crosswind limitation?
Um, 17 pretty much, I think, is where I have it in my personal minimums.
Okay. I mean, have you flown around with 17 knot crosswinds? I don't know. I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
the Dakotas
Yep.
are pretty.
Yeah. And so it's been weird. So we started training at one place and it was out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I felt like it's been interesting because that one had way more crosswinds, but it was consistent crosswinds, it felt like for the most part. To where it's, the only thing you have around you is farmland. And so that was kind of nice because you get used to that, where we'll have those 17 knot crosswind kind of days, where we have to make a lot of corrections. Now that we're flying at a flight school that is more in a city, where we have a lot of mechanical wind shear around it, it was interesting where I was just like, oh man, like felt like I was coming in the first few times really well, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and just having to address like those constant wind changes off of that mechanical wind shear was interesting.
Yeah. Now, how do we correct for a crosswind? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish? What are we doing?
Sure. So we want to say if we're coming in, I want to dip my aileron into the wind and kick my rudder the opposite way because I want to stay on course. So if I'm flying straight forward and that wind is hitting me from that cross side, I would get blown out. So I want to have my aileron go off to that side, and then my rudder is kicking the nose to straighten and stay in line with uh, the runway.
Awesome. Awesome. Right. So we use here, I got a little Cherokee right here. Right. So we use our aileron to keep us left and right, rudder to keep us pointed in the direction of the runway. Perfect. Now, is there any airspeed that's not actually displayed on your, or not marked or displayed on your airspeed indicator? Actually, your G5 probably has it marked.
Maneuver speed.
Maneuvering speed. Now, what is maneuvering speed?
So maneuvering is the speed at which if I make like one swift correction or one, if I say I kick the rudder full left, I risk above that, I risk breaking that control.
Right. We're just breaking the airplane, not necessarily just
Yeah.
that control, right?
Okay.
There was an Airbus that snapped its tail off.
Oh,
So it didn't just break the control.
yeah. All right. Broke the whole. All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
It snapped like right there.
Oh.
So yeah, don't get me wrong. They were dancing on the rudder. It wasn't just one quick kick. They were back and forth on it. But right, it's not just the control surface. With your smaller airplane with less mass, less inertia, yeah, you'll probably just crack the rudder, but we don't want to roll those dice. Okay.
Yeah.
Given that the tail coming off is apparently an option. Um,
Yeah, that'd be
now,
frightening. So,
now, it's obvious that you've read through the POH. I love it. Let's get into some emergencies so far. What is your plan if you have an engine failure during your takeoff roll, right? You haven't left the ground. You're rolling down the runway, airspeed alive, engine.
so I'm gonna pull the throttle and hit the brakes and just try to stop before the end of the runway.
All right. Let's say that you might end up off the end of the runway.
Uh,
Does anything
uh,
change?
no, so I'm pulling the yoke back, trying to get as much aerodynamical braking as possible. And trying to keep uh, that nose wheel off the ground as much as possible. But yeah, I think we're doing the same if it's on a roll.
All right. I mean, my only other thoughts would be like kill the master, magnetos, and fuel selector if you've got the time, right? Let's try to prevent a fire, especially in a Piper, given that it's only got the one door, right? If your instructor bounces their skull off of the dash and dies, then you got to climb over a body and whatnot. So,
All right.
so let's try to, if that's going to end up being the option and you got the time. All right. Now let's talk about an engine failure after takeoff. So we're climbing out 700 feet. We start to feel the engine kind of rumble. 800 feet, it's done.
Sure. So we're gonna pitch for that best glide, which is gonna be 73. Look for a spot to land no more than 30 degrees off the nose. So I pretty much have to land straight ahead. I can't try to make an impossible turn and turn back. Just trying to find something to land on.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, do you brief this plan before takeoff? Like you're holding short of the runway?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So give me that kind of briefing that you go through like at your, your training school. Like where's your plan? Where are you going?
Sure. So our training, we have a good set of road like just off to that side. So are we going through my pre-takeoff, or I'm just telling you
Yeah,
our plan
pre-takeoff. Yeah.
for? Sure. So the before rotation, if there's an engine failure, I'll abort the takeoff, close the throttle, and stop straight ahead. After rotation, but below 1,000, I'll pitch for the best glide speed of 73, land straight ahead or within 30 degrees of the nose, try to hit the road to my right. No turnbacks towards the runway. Above 1,000, I'll evaluate for altitude conditions to consider before returning to the airport for a suitable landing area. If I'm above 1,000, troubleshooting may be attempted if time permits.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it that there's actually a plan. Like, hey, where are we going to go? So many people just give that brief, give like a generic briefing, land within 30 degrees. And then when it actually happens, like, well, crap,
Yeah.
what is 30 degrees? All of this looks like crap. Maybe I should have thought of this beforehand.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what about a fire in flight? Let's say you were cruising along and you start noticing maybe a little bit of a burning smell. You see some fire coming up out of the cowling, some smoke coming out of the cowling.
So if you have a fire, this is in flight.
Yep.
First, I'd want to make for sure, kind of determine, do I feel like it's going to be an electrical fire or if it's an engine fire? Um, and so if it's an engine fire, I'm going to look to turn off the fuel selector, close the throttle, go idle on the mixture, basically turn kind of all the stuff that might be involved with the fuel going into the engine, turn off the fuel pumps, try to uh, get the anything that might come into the cabin with smoke, so like the cabin, and then I want to try to create a descent to extinguish that flame as best as I can. Uh, then pitch if the fire does go out, go through uh, my kind of emergency descent stuff where we're declaring either way, we're going to declare the emergency on an engine fire with a 121.5, squawk 7700, um, and look for the best place to land, pitch for 73 if the fire went out. If not, we're still trying to uh, pitch for to get enough speed to blow that fire out.
Okay, so what would be like your maximum airspeed in which you'd be going to try and get this fire to go out?
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to go anything really above that normal green arc, I believe. So,
Yep.
so um, for this one, I think it's like 120, uh, like one, yeah,
I think it's
120 probably.
124, I think.
Yeah, 126. Yep.
Ah, all right. Now let's say you're cruising along, fat, dumb, and happy, and you look over and you start to see your oil temperature climb, right? Not necessarily rapidly, but you've been cruising along for an hour at like that 75% power. Like you're like, I got places to be, I got stuff to
Mhm.
do. So you're at that max 75% power and you're at like 4,000 feet and your oil temperature, it's starting to tick up. It's like 195. And then 5 minutes later, it's 205. What might you do?
Um, so we could reduce the throttle and give that engine a little bit of a breather. We could also try to enrich the mixture. Um, if we still continue to have issues with it, we can look for a place to land. Um, it's like a suitable airport that would have services.
All right. What might not also be a bad idea is a nice little cruise climb, right? We'll reduce some power a little bit, maybe bring it back to 65% power and see if we can get like a 200 foot per minute climb up to some higher altitudes where it might be colder, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and there's some give or take trade off on that, right? As we get higher, it's the air's less dense, right? So it might not wick away heat as well. So if I'm, climbing up to like 10,000, then we're running into air density issues where we just don't have dense enough air to cool down the engine. But that also gives us a more altitude for choices to land in the event that, well, the engine goes kaput.
Sure.
Um, Last emergency, or no, we got two more. Sorry. We're cruising along on our cross country and we notice some clouds start to move in, but we're like, it's still VFR, right? This looks few to me. I'm not too concerned about this. So we push on. And since it's a low wing airplane, you don't spend a whole lot of time looking down, right?
Mhm.
So you're on your iPad, making sure you're on your route, and you got like 35 miles between legs. So you're not really looking down that often. So by the time you start reaching your next waypoint, you look down and realize you don't really have ground contact anymore. Some fog and some clouds kind of moved in. You might be stuck above a broken layer at this point. What's your plan?
So my plan is to do a 180 and go back where I came from. Hopefully, we can get back into an area that would be VFR.
Okay. So you turn around and it looks very much like maybe a cloud layer just moved in. Some moisture came in. And it looks pretty broken to overcast for as far as you can really see at this altitude.
So at that point, I wanted to contact an ATC if I can, or flight services, and try to see if they can. Well, first of all, tell them that I am a VFR pilot in IFR conditions, and have them try to vector me out of that area. Sometimes people would advise to climb as well, so I might be able to look to get some more altitude, depending on kind of where we're flying at. My VFR route is 2,000 feet AGL for most of it, and then towards the end it gets pretty short. So if I'm getting closer to the shorter side, um, I might see on ADSB on my bore flight if there's anybody in the vicinity, and if there's not, might try to climb a little bit just to uh, make sure that I can avoid any obstacles and contact ATC or flight services and try to have them vector me in.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I do just want to talk about that ADSB on ForeFlight. Does everyone have ADSB?
No. So
No.
they're not required to have ADSB. My hope would be that if they're in those, my hope would be that there's not somebody in those terrible conditions as well that doesn't have ADSB. Because my understanding is that, um, well, yeah,
Yeah. It's required and also kind of a dick move to not have it. I mean, it's like $1,600 to install it on your airplane. Like, come on.
yeah.
Awesome. I would just kind of try to veer away from using ADSB as like a sole source of, separation, especially in those conditions, right?
Okay.
There's been instances where airplanes have come close to each other, where airplanes have actually hit each other and people survived because it was like during landing. And like when asked about it, they said, well, I didn't see anybody on traffic. I didn't see anybody on ADSB. Not everybody's got it, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people just straight up refuse to get it.
Yeah. There's a number of times, especially during the spring when we fly, in summer, that there's a lot of crop dusters around South Dakota that are flying the entire time. And so, uh, I'll be 2,000 feet up or whatever, and then they're flying right below me. So,
Yeah, because I mean, crop dusting's the margins on crop dusting is pretty low. So I mean, throwing the $1,600 to get ADSB out can be, you know,
right.
the whole profit of that airplane for the season. Because it's not like those air tractors sip fuel. Awesome. Now, last real emergency is a spin. Is this aircraft certified for spins? No, no. So how do I recover from one if, let's say heaven forbid I get into one?
So I would want to use the PAIR acronym. So, uh, pull my power. We would want to go ailerons neutral. Push the rudder that fights me, and then elevator briskly forward to break that stall.
Awesome. Now, why is the elevator fighting you in a spin?
Um, so my understanding is that when we push that, how do I say it? Like there's um, should be a lot more lifting force on that one side. Um, uh, so it's been, um, yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Uh,
Let's talk about
okay.
it. So, one thing that you haven't experienced spins, right? So it can be kind of
Nope.
hard to
Luckily.
visualize it, right? So what you've probably experienced, at least on your first
So,
on your first steep turns, was probably a spiral, right? Where
yep.
we kind of we're going down, but what you're noticing is the axis of rotation is outside of the airplane, right? When we're in a
Yep.
spin, the axis of rotation is internal to the airplane. Okay. So with the axis of rotation internal to the airplane, we're not operating in a vacuum. There's air out here. So this airplane's rotating and the wind is pushing on the tail,
Yeah.
deflecting that rudder,
Yep.
right? So why is the rudder fighting me? Well, because it's deflected due to the fact that the axis of rotation is internal to the airplane and the rudder is swinging through the air. So if I kick it opposite, it's going to try to stop that rotation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah. Like these, it's funny because like it's just there. A lot of these sometimes are like, oh yeah, this is just understood, but it's being able to like, being asked to like explain it is more difficult. So
Yeah, and that's kind
just
of what
have
a
that.
lot of these mock check rides are for. Is it's not that you don't know it. It's that this might be the
Right.
first opportunity you've ever had to say it out loud,
Right.
right? And that's why I tell a lot of students when they're getting ready for their check ride, talk to anybody that'll listen. Because if you can explain it to somebody who doesn't care and they understand it, you probably understand the information,
Yeah. Sounds
right?
good.
Um, but so far, solid. I mean, that was really the only thing that we had to kind of bring up and talk about. Um, I'm happy with where you're at. You've obviously read the POH. You understand your airplane. Let's get into your privileges and limitations. So, as a private pilot, what is changing between as a student pilot and getting into private pilot?
Um, so now I can carry passengers. Um, I can, uh, you know, do charity work. Um, I can, if I have, say, I think it's like 500 hours, can become a salesman for uh, planes or for a plane if I have over 200 hours, tow gliders with some training and some endorsements, um, and then do search and rescue.
Okay. So, let's say you saw on the news that like somebody's lost out there. Can you just go hop in your airplane and start going to search for them?
No, So I'd want to make
So,
sure that, yeah, that I'm being asked to do that rather than doing it myself.
right. This is not necessarily being asked. You can volunteer, right? You hear somebody's lost and the fire department's struggling to find them. Sure, call the fire department. Hey, I've got an airplane. I'd be more than happy to come help. Right. Um, Now you've got a medical. Took you years to get it. It's a huge pain. What's going to happen to your privileges if you, let's say, let your medical lapse?
Um, so then I would have to get a sort of past the. So mine's a second class medical, so it's good for 24 months, or I should say, the first 12 months as second class privileges, and the last 12 months as third class privileges. If I let that lapse, I feel like I would have to get it. Um, uh, I'd have to get that reissued. So.
Okay. Is there anything else you could do to maintain your privileges to fly?
I could do basic med
Okay.
if I wanted to, with some of the limitations that they have.
Okay. Is there
So
anything else?
um, for
Okay.
me to,
Let me rephrase it. Are there any privileges that you maintain by having a private pilot certificate and also, let's say, being able to maintain a driver's license?
um, I'm trying to think of like some of the like flying some of the ultralight sport stuff. Uh, Other than basic med, I'm not
Well,
thinking
we
of.
could talk about it. And I mean, it's not that big of a deal. A lot of instructors aren't bringing it up because it happened on October 22nd. Right. So
Okay.
it's fairly recent. Have you heard Mosaic?
Hmm.
No, Mosaic, it's an acronym. You know, we all know that the FAA loves their acronyms. I'm trying to Google it to understand, to not understand, but to know what it stands for. Mosaic. Where is the acronym? It's like modernization of special airworthiness certificates or something like that. But AOPA actually has a really good article on it with a long list of FAQs. Right. So at AirVenture this year, they released Mosaic. And really what it does is it allows you as a private pilot to maintain sport pilot privileges if you let your medical lapse.
Okay.
But it changed what airplanes can be flown under a sport pilot certificate. So before this, sport pilot was only allowed to fly light sport airplanes, right? Two-seaters, slow, super lightweight stuff. But now, let's say you let your medical lapse, you can now fly under sport. So here it says, I'm an instrument rated. No, not that one. What's the process to fly under sport privileges if I already hold private pilot, commercial, ATP, etc.? A pilot already holding a private pilot, commercial, ATP, etc., can fly in the category of aircraft they're rated for under their sport pilot privileges with no additional training. If a pilot chooses to do this, they must adhere to the new sport pilot privileges, such as only carrying one passenger and flying an aircraft that meets the performance requirements. Any pilot that wants to fly other categories of aircraft, they must first meet the requirements under 61321, which is like the endorsements and the training associated with it. So, given that it was such a hassle for you to get your medical, maybe you don't want to bother going through and getting another one, right? You can still fly most airplanes. It's the wire stall speed's different. Oh, that's not what it is. What is changing? So now the max seats, it went from 2, now it's 4 seats. There was a max weight, now there's no max weight. The maximum stall speed with no flaps prior to this was 45. Now it's gone up to 61. For airplanes, maximum airspeed went from 20 to 250. So really what this is saying is that you can fly pretty much any general aviation airplane under sport pilot privileges now.
Okay.
All right.
Wow.
So this helps a lot of people that, well, I mean, let's just be honest. Sometimes getting a medical can be a hassle. Sometimes maintaining that special medical can be a hassle. And why am I going to go through that if I can fly under sport? I don't have enough friends to fly with more than one person anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, the whole goal with this one is just, we've is so as a being an MMA coach and boxing coach, like we get done a lot of times with fights at like 11 o'clock and and normally we're fighting 4 or 5 hours away. And so um making that dreaded drive back till 3 a.m. or uh, stay in the night, it'd just be a lot nicer to be able to fly for an hour and hour and a half rather than a 4 hour drive.
Well, and I mean, you can get like the, I mean, do you have like a budget in mind? I know we're a little, but like
Um
when
so we've
students are
got
like, well, they want to buy an
yeah.
airplane, I was like, ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it'd most likely be like a Cherokee 6, 235, something like that. Because being, I don't know why all of our coaches were like, I'm 6'5", 275, and so I can't the light sport or ultra light is going to be difficult for me to take anybody else with. So trying to find something that's got a little bit more useful load.
These
Ooh,
are quick and roomy.
sure.
Um, I mean, that's a comfy seat for a big dude.
There you go.
And this is the extra large one too, so it's got the extra room back there as well. And they go for about the same price as a Cherokee 6, and they're quick. They're like $180 cruise.
Hmm.
So, just don't push the experimental stuff out of your mind just yet. Because as you know, at the beginning of this, we talked about it. They're cheaper to maintain.
Sure.
All right. Um, Now, let's get into how you verify that your airplane is airworthy. So, as a private pilot, you're going to be PIC. So, it's your responsibility to ensure that an airplane is airworthy. It's not necessarily your responsibility to maintain it in an airworthy shape unless it's your aircraft, but it's your responsibility to verify. So, what are we looking for in that maintenance logbook to ensure that this airplane is airworthy?
So we want to make sure that it has the annual inspection. Um, and then since the trainer that we're using right now is for hire, that would have to have the 100-hour inspection on there. We'd also want to check that the transponder was done every 24 months, the ELT every 12 months. And then if we're doing VFR stuff, I'd want to make sure that the VOR was checked every 30 days, and the static system, or like the uh, pedostatic system, was checked every 24 months.
Okay. So a lot of these aren't necessarily required for an airplane to be airworthy. They're required for the airplane to operate in certain conditions. So what's like the bare minimum? Let's say I bought an airplane and the cheapest thing in an airplane, right? It's the owner.
Mm.
So what's like the bare minimum maintenance that I need to do to maintain my airplane's airworthiness?
Um, the uh, Man, why am I struggling on this? The uh, Man, now uh, struggling
I
here.
know it's kind of asked in a way that like nobody really asked, right? We always cover that
Yeah.
acronym, Aviate,
Okay. Yeah. So
right?
yep. So I'd want to make sure uh, that uh, yeah, that we have, um, since we don't have a KOEL, since we don't have an MEL for this one, we'd want to go through and make sure that uh, I
But we're not
have
talking about what's broken, right? We're
sure.
just talking about the maintenance items required to maintain airworthiness, right? Because I have an airworthiness certificate, and that airworthiness certificate is only valid as long as I accomplish, these items, right? Annual, right? I need to do an annual.
Yep.
No airplane maintains its airworthiness longer than 12 calendar months. Annual always needs to get done.
Yep.
Only other thing that I need to maintain airworthiness is
Is the
airworthiness directives.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So I'd want to make sure that all my ADs are complied with, and then any service bulletins that would be um, that might affect this. And the service bulletins wouldn't be required, but would be suggestions uh, from the person that, or the manufacturer.
Right. Awesome. So who puts out airworthiness directives? Where do those come from?
That'd be from the FAA.
That'd be from the FAA. Awesome. Now, are there different types of airworthiness directives? Like, let me rephrase it. Does your airplane that you're currently training in have any airworthiness directives?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Um, so if in that little sheet,
Oh, that
there's
little
yeah, there's
spreadsheet.
yeah, there's some that well, and then it just kicks me uh, back to the um, back to the regular search. But if we look through that, it says that there's 24 of them, um, and so let's see. So this one would be for the autopilot system. We don't have an autopilot system. The fuel quantity indicator. Uh, but yeah, so that would be. Trying to think of the. Um,
The
blanking
autopilot
on
system it's probably referring to is your trim,
oh, okay.
right? Because what it's very likely is your electric trim that you have is a piece of an autopilot system, and they just chose to install only the electric trim,
Okay.
right? So I mean, we've got a couple different types of airworthiness directives. We have terminating action ones that like accomplish this one task one time. Congratulations,
Yep.
airworthiness directives complied with.
Yeah.
Then we
And
have
then
recurring ones,
yeah, and then the
right?
emergency ones are right.
I mean, yeah, there could be some emergency ones where the FAA goes, "Oh dear God, this airplane's going to kill people. The airplane is not airworthy right now until you accomplish this item." Right? I think the Pipers, there were some Pipers that a wing came off of one in flight, so the FAA like grounded all Pipers until they got like a wing spar inspection.
Yep. Yeah, that's the third one on there, I think. So
Yeah, it's real important. After I saw that one, I shake every wing before I get in the airplane because, like, sure, it's probably attached, but what if it's not? Like,
true.
um, awesome. So this airplane needs some documentation for it to kind of show that it's airworthy and for it to be legal to fly around. What documents need to be in an airplane?
So we need to have the STCs. We need to have the placards that would be on there. We need to have the airworthiness certificate, registration if we're going overseas. If I want, or over, if I want, shouldn't say overseas, but international. If I want to go to Canada, I'd have to have a radio ID. Um, no desire currently to. That's too cold right now. So,
Yeah,
and then the operating handbook or my POH and the weight and balance.
awesome, awesome. Um, Now, let's say that you walk out to the airplane, you do your pre-flight, and you notice that the landing light just doesn't turn on. Let's maybe even put this in the context of, let's say you own this airplane and the
Okay.
landing light just won't turn on. You flip the switch, you turn it off, turn it on, you even go out there and kind of tap on it a little bit. Hopefully some percussive maintenance fixes it, but nothing. No dice. Landing light won't turn on. Is there anything you as a private pilot that can do about this?
Um, so I'd want to contact the maintenance, but I don't believe uh, for the preventative maintenance, I'd have to look, but I don't think I can do the landing light. I think it would have to be that's more like my cleaning my spark plugs, changing, uh, or like adding brake fluid, things like that.
You know, that is the one light you are allowed to touch,
Okay.
is the
So,
landing light as part of preventative maintenance. It's nice. It sounds like you've read it. But yeah, that's like the one light that you can touch. It says it, landing light circuit diagnosis and repair.
okay.
Not sure why they picked the landing light, but
Sure.
the landing light is the one light that you are allowed to touch. So let's say instead you walk out to the airplane and the turn coordinator is dead. So because you said that's one of your last few old school instruments. And the turn coordinator, you turn on the power and it just sounds like somebody's shaking dice behind that turn coordinator. How do you know if this airplane's airworthy?
Uh, so I'd want to go through uh, and another uh, wonderful acronym. And man, why is this so much harder when I'm actually uh, going through this stuff?
Well, because we've
But
been at
we
it for
want
about
to,
an hour and 20 minutes now.
yeah, that's true. But I would want to go through HMAO flames. And so double check my airspeed indicator, my tachometer, uh, and uh, my oil pressure gauge, my manifold pressure, which wouldn't be applicable for this one because it's not a constant speed prop, my altimeter, my temperature gauge, which again wouldn't be applicable because it's not liquid, cooled, and my oil temperature, my fuel gauge, my landing gear, um, and anti-collision, and then a compass and uh, ELT and safety belt. So my turn coordinator, since it's not part of one of those, um, um, should still, I'd want to check to see if there was any uh, ADs or anything else that might require that. But I should be able to still fly with that. I'd want to contact maintenance, have them uh, um, disable it, and then placard it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we talked about airworthiness directives, STCs, type certificate data sheet, STCs is another place we want to check. And if the airplane has a KOEL, right? And the other reason I bring up STC is because you've got those G5s, and those G5s in their STC, there is some equipment that's required to be operable with those G5s, right? Let's say your airspeed indicator, your traditional old school airspeed indicator, it's still got one, right?
Yep.
All right. What if that thing's broken? Is this airplane still airworthy?
I believe since we have one on the G5, it should be good.
All right. And that's the STC that we're going to check. So if you looked at the G5 STC, it says the G5 can't be primary pedostatic information. It's not certified for that.
Okay.
Right. So if we follow 91205 kind of blindly, and that's the thing, a lot of mechanics have installed G5s following 91205 blindly and not reading this STC associated with it. And they take out all the old school instruments because it looks cooler if you just put the G5s in there. But unless you get a field approval, right? The FAA has done field approvals for G5 only installations. But Garmin has said, no, we do not certify this thing for pedostatic information. And a lot of students, they haven't read through it, so they don't know. So it's not, the end of the world. But as long as we know where to check is really the big deal. Now, let's say you're hanging out at the airport and somebody approaches you. You're, I don't know, cleaning the airplane because you just finished your flight, and somebody approaches you saying, "Hey, man, I've got someplace I got to be, a couple states over. Let's say Wisconsin. You want to split the gas and head on over there and drop me off?"
I wouldn't be able to do that because it would. It's not for a common purpose. Like if we were going to something together, like we're going to a fight together, I'm able to charge the pro rata share for that flight and split it between the people that are going there for that same common purpose. But I can't do it for somebody else. That would be compensation.
Awesome. Now, let's say you are going to a fight, right? And it's like, to be honest, I don't know much about these fights, but just humor me, all right? So
Sure.
you're going to a fight, and I don't know, the other person that's coming with you, they're bringing two kids. One of them's like 8 years old, the other one's like 12 years old. Can you split that pro rata share with the kids?
Ooh. So to where we would each pay a fourth, basically.
Yeah. Can you split it that way?
I would probably say, well, I don't know. Yeah, I would say, I want to say no, because they're not going there for the same, I guess they are going there for the same purpose, but yeah, I would say, yeah, they can split 25%.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the FAA doesn't define like, oh, well, it's got to be adults or anything like
Okay.
that. Like, yeah, is it kind of a dick move? Like if, your buddy's bringing their kids and you're like, all right, I'm only paying a quarter of the gas because you brought two kids with you. Like, yeah,
Gotcha.
kind of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'd do that to my buddies, but I guess kids, useful load, maybe a little bit more gas. I don't know.
Yeah. Times are tough.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen the price of Moga? Have you seen the price of 100 low lead out there? It's like $5.75 a gallon.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Pretty solid understanding of our privileges and limitations. Now let's talk about your route, which is, this chart or this spreadsheet. And again, I absolutely love this. We've got right up here at the top our estimated start time, our estimated stop time. We've also got, is this for time zone change as well?
Yeah. So we're going to be going through a time zone change at the
Awesome.
Missouri River.
Now, you've got airports along the way, all the frequencies associated with it, approach and departure frequencies, so that maybe you can pick up flight following or what have you along the way. All the tower frequencies are right there, flight service along the way, ground when appropriate, all the different runways, so that you're not fiddling with your iPad, fiddling with your sectional. Perfect planning. You've got all your runway lengths, your route. So we're departing off of Yankee 14. And then I see this top of climb river to the left. Can you kind of break down how you calculated that? How did you get that top of climb?
Sure. So a lot of these were, we're pulling off of for flight, but for the most part on that top of climb, I'd want to look at, what are we doing that 75 of VY, and how far are we climbing, and then be able to establish my rate of climb off of that. So we would look in the POH for my rate of climb, which is going to be, roughly, 600 feet per minute, I think. And then we want to take into account the wind for that and figure out where my distance is going. So since we have a 23 knot headwind on this one, my ground speed's like 52. It's going to take me a little bit longer to get there, and my distance would be 4 miles.
Awesome. Now, your VY, is that an indicated or a calibrated or a true airspeed?
So that is my true airspeed, or excuse me, the indicated airspeed for there, my true airspeed, and that are pretty close. They're like one um, for my calibrated, I should say, is like 1 knot difference depending on the temperature. And then with my true airspeed, I'd have to look at the POH and go through there, but it's going to be dependent on the atmospheric conditions.
Awesome. Now, yeah, I'm happy with that. You knew how to calculate it. I see. Now, is there any math behind this, or is this just numbers? You just put this in. No, there's no math behind this. You just put this. You just did the calculations and put it in.
So there's this one's off of for flight. The other ones we've had to do, all my cross country ones that we've had to do locally, have had to do by paper.
Okay. Oh, I see what you did. This was exported as an Excel file from ForeFlight.
Correct.
Okay, there it is. I know when I went through Private Pilot, I built a spreadsheet that just did the math for me. Like I could put my compass heading in, put the wind in, and it would just spit out all the numbers associated. I thought that might have been what you did here. I was looking to see if there's any math, but no, it's just, all right. No, I mean, that's, go ahead.
I have a sheet of that too, for Navlog that we've had. Like I said, for all the other ones, I'm not allowed to use for flight, so we have to do like a paper chart, and then the nav for that is like how to do it by hand. So
okay. Now, this top of descent, TOD, can you kind of give me a rough ballpark explanation on like how you calculated that? Like, why is this our top of descent?
and so that would be one thing that I would probably, looking at some of the so we're running into, I was originally had this set for 6,500 because of the elevation of the stuff around it, but the top of descent would work okay for here. We're just going to run into situations where we're getting pretty close to, say, 4,000 elevation. But my TOD, or my top descent, would be, usually I'm looking for 500 feet per minute. So in the plane, I want to take away, so if I need to lose in this case, 1,300 feet, I want to think, okay, that's going to take me 500 feet per minute, almost 1,500 feet. So that's going to be 3 minutes of descent time. And if we're doing, since it's at, or I should say, 3204, my field elevation would be 3204. My actual entry into the pattern would be 1,000 feet above that, so 4204. So,
Awesome.
sorry, over talked myself there, but yeah. So basically, I only need to lose in this case 300 feet to get into field elevation
Yep, to get to your pattern
or
altitude.
pattern
So I mean that's
altitude.
why it's only 4 miles out, right? Because you're effectively at pattern altitude during your cruise.
Right.
Now, with that in mind, at 4,500 feet,
Yeah. And so,
my only concern is like maybe, yeah, I heard you say that you planned it
yeah.
at 6,500 earlier. When you go to the actual check ride, I definitely plan for the 6,500 because as we get closer and closer, I mean, at this point, we've barely got our 500
Right.
foot clearance.
Yep.
Right. And then as we go into that next sector, we do not have 500 foot clearance from obstacles. Right.
Right. So one of my, I looked at possibly making it like past that Murdo one, bumping that up to 6,500, but then the ground, like obviously would have about, we start to climb and get higher because we're going towards the mountains, raising that at that. There's quite a bit of icing on the east side of the state right now that's like 3,000 feet above. So that's why I opted for a lower altitude, but that's what I was going to say, like probably changing it around Murdo to 6,500 um,
Awesome.
for the flight.
Let me see if I can open this a little bigger. Is it because this icing airmet, is it Murdo where that's kind of cutting off?
No, just so the winds aloft are a little bit better through the up until like at 4,500 than at 6,500. But yeah, Murdo, like that Chamberlain
Oh, I see.
area, anything above past there is where I just kind of wanted to stay away from that higher altitude and the icing.
Okay, I see what you're talking about. I turned on the icing layer, and I can see, it's a little bit north of you. But things can move down. A little bit of moisture moves in, a little bit of rain moves in. That's the last thing you need, right? Just pick up some ice on your airplane. Um, it's nice to see that you thought you had that kind of thought. We weren't just like, sure, 400 feet clearance from the ground, whatever. I don't feel like climbing that high anyway, right? We had a plan, we had a thought behind it. I like that. And I guess going to land here anyway. I don't know. Is it worth the climb? Especially with the icing up higher. I don't know. I feel like I like your idea, right? Climb at Murdo, get you some more clearance from the ground. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Oh, right. So we're departing out of Marvski, Lincoln County, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is this purple line that's kind of surrounding this area, this shaded purple line? What is this indicating?
That's the um, like the I don't say that particular section, right? So from say 930 to 940.
930 to 940? What do we mean by?
Sorry, like the lines of latitude and longitude.
No. I'm talking about this shaded purple area right here.
Oh, sorry. Um, so that would be our echo.
Okay. So if I'm inside this shaded purple area, how low do I have to go to get out of echo?
So for that one, I would want to be 700 feet.
700 feet. Now, what about outside? How low do I have to go to get outside of Echo?
1,200 feet.
1,200 feet. So this is, what airspace is this? Right up here at Joe Foss Field.
It's a Delta.
It's a Delta. So this Delta airport has a little star right here in the middle of it. What is this little star?
So it's part-time airport. So it's going to switch basically from a class Charlie, a class Delta to a class Echo.
Okay. So this airport has a star too.
Yeah.
Is this one have
so
a control
Beacon,
tower?
Sorry. Beacon, I mean. Sorry.
All right. Now, why is this one right up here on top of the airport and this one seems to be in the middle of the airport?
Not sure.
The one where it's in the middle of the airport, the runways are long enough for them to actually depict the runways.
Okay.
And the star is showing you where it is in relation to the runways. Okay. This one, since the runways aren't long enough, I'd have to look up what the delineating factor is on like what a long enough runway means. But the runways here aren't long enough, so they just put the star up top and they just give you the little circle. But since the runways are long enough here, they show you the actual runway shape and, you know, orientation. And they put the star or the beacon where you could expect to see them in relation to the airport or in relation to the runways.
Yep.
Now, what does this star mean?
Yep. I believe that would be part-time services for the control tower.
There it is. Now, what about this one right here next to the L?
So pilot controlled lighting.
All right. 99% of the time, yeah, it's pilot controlled lighting. What it really means is there's something in the chart supplement about the lighting.
Okay.
Right. Most of the time when you go to the chart supplement, it tells you pilot controlled lighting on a certain frequency. Other times it could say lighting's only part-time or lighting set to medium by default or, you know, something like that. What I've also seen in some places is it separates the helipad. The helipad is on a different frequency. Okay. It's just showing you that something in the chart supplement. Most of the time, yes, it's pilot controlled lighting, but what is this purple dashed airspace that you're staying just north of?
So this is a MOA. And so I would be able to fly through them, but I would want to make sure that we spoke with, looked on the chart supplement to see what the active times are, and then also maybe contact the controlling agency for that and see when they're going to be active.
Okay. Now, what am I worried about? Why am I so wary of this? What's going on inside this MOA?
So most likely military operations, and so maybe they have very fast moving jets at low altitudes, and so something that and a lot of times they would not be on like a ADSB, or at least not the same ones that we have. Not sure what they have, but yeah,
Awesome,
maybe firing from.
So
like
there's
a
there's no live fire inside MOAs unless it's specifically stated. And you're going to see a prohibited area or a restricted area associated with it. So this MOA, there's not going to be any live fire.
Yep.
Right. Unless, like, I think I might have seen that might be a range.
Okay.
Like an actual firing range. But it's going to be ground, right? It's going to be, you know, grunts on the ground practicing with their rifles. It's not going to be, you know, A-10s doing strafing runs with, you know,
Yeah.
beer bottle sized rounds. Now I want to talk about these two different airports. Their symbology looks dang near the same.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between Corsica and Platt?
Okay, so Corsica is a grass field, and Platt, or like a non-hard surface, and Platt would be a hard surface.
Awesome, right? Corsica doesn't have a hard surface for the intention of landing, right? And Platt has a hard surface for the intention of landing. And the only reason I kind of bring it up that way is, stating it as there's no hard surface for the intention of landing. Some of these airports, they intentionally leave the runway grass because it's like a small community and they don't want a bunch of jets coming in there. And most jets can't really land on grass. Sure, the C-130 could probably, can handle grass just fine. But, they want to keep people with their Vision jets out of there. So they'll have paved taxiways. They just won't pave the runway. Now, what is this airspace right here with this dashed purple?
So the dashed purple would be echo to the surface.
Echo to the surface. What is so special about this lake? Why it's dotted?
Sure, it's can be reported as sometimes dry.
Sometimes dry, sometimes water. I like it. There's a lot of sometimes water out here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big lake to sometimes dry up. Is it dry?
That one, no. Usually it's not. So
okay. I'm assuming given is it super shallow? That's what I would kind of think. It's got to be, given that
a marshland kind of stuff.
Okay. What's this dashed purple line that's kind of cutting across the whole map?
So isogonic line. So that would be our magnetic variation, magnetic deviation. Excuse me. No, magnetic variation. Magnetic deviation would be the compass. So the difference between our true north and our magnetic north.
Awesome, right? Difference between where Santa Claus lives and where the magnetic pole goes. I don't know. That's how I remember
it.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, you brought up deviation and variation, right? So this is our variation line. Is your airplane really concerned about deviation?
No, because we have the G5, and so it would be something if I had an HSI that from my vacuum system before, then I would have to make for sure to check that at straight and level flight every once in a while. But with the G5, I don't need to.
Okay, so I mean it's because the compass has the problem, but the G5 it doesn't have the same problems as the compass, right? Right. It's getting its magnetic information from way out in the wing, most likely. Sometimes they put them way the hell out in the wingtip. Here, I'll even look it up. GMU.
So basically,
11.
there's no electrical interference from at that far out.
Yeah. So I mean, GMU 11. Yeah. So a lot of times they'll put them way the hell out here, and there's nothing else out here.
Sure.
Right. There might just be a light or two. But then they have all that shielded wire that takes it way back in there. This is a Cessna. But that's why we're not really worried about it, right? Because we don't have all that amperage and power and everything flowing through inside the airplane. Like next time you go flying, put your iPad up next to the compass and see how sensitive it is, right?
Right.
Now, what is this spot right here?
So that's a wilderness area. So we'd want to make sure to, or we're suggested to stay 2,000 feet above that area.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess there's Mount Rushmore right there. You probably want to stay away from that. Oh yeah, and they have high volume of helicopter tours in that area.
Yep. Yeah, this Rapid City is where I had to do my SOTA. So I begged and begged and begged to fly around Mount Rushmore. I was denied. So
well, it's because they got the same thing happens in like the Grand Canyon. They won't let you fly your own private airplane in the Grand Canyon either. Not necessarily in the Grand. Obviously, we don't want to go in the Grand Canyon, but
have a negative AGL. So.
Yeah. All right. Reading the chart, you seem pretty squared away. Let's go and find a busier airspace. What is the equipment? Let's say I wanted to fly to this airport, Denver. What equipment would I need in my airplane for me to legally operate inside this airspace?
So I need a mode C transponder and an ADSB out. And then also I need to get two-way communication with them, and would actually need to hear my tail number cleared into the Bravo.
Awesome. Let's go find a different one. Now, what's this one?
So that is a C, Charlie.
Do I need a clearance to enter this?
You would still need ADSB, mode C transponder, and you need clearance in the Bravo, but they could say, um, Cherokee is, um, my tail number, and they wouldn't necessarily have to say cleared into the Bravo. Communication, I believe, would be they're clearing into the Charlie.
Right. So if they don't say remain clear of the Charlie, we can go through the Charlie.
Correct.
Awesome. Now this is a funny airport. Acme Regional. It looks like
Well,
it
we
might
actu-
be slightly under this Charlie shelf, right?
Correct.
Okay. What equipment do I need? Let's say I have an airplane here. What equipment do I need to operate out of this airport?
Um, so uh, this basically just, um, this is outside of that shelf, so really nothing.
Yeah, I need an airplane.
Yeah,
That's about it. All right. Now, what about Laverty since it's under that shelf? Does that change?
yeah. So I would want to look at. So there's that Charlie goes from 2,200 to 5,000 AGL. So I guess we could, um, since it's at, we could try to fly underneath of that mode C veil, or that mode C area. But most likely I would still want my ADSB and mode C transponder, because we're flying into um, we're going to be flying in that Class Charlie area.
Okay. So just to kind of clarify it, as long as we're within the lateral boundaries of Charlie, I need a mode C transponder
Okay.
and ADSB out, right? So even if I'm at Laverty and I only stay, 500 feet off the ground, I still need that mode C and ADSB out because I'm within the lateral boundaries. They need to verify that I'm not in their airspace. Okay. Now, I don't know if you just misspoke, but is this MSL or AGL?
MSL, sorry.
Okay. Reading a chart seems pretty squared away. It seems like you can read weather, but let's just go to aviationweather.gov just to check the boxes at this point, because I'm pretty happy where you're at. I wouldn't be concerned so far about signing you off if you were my student. Did amazing planning, showed up with, again, this spreadsheet. You should see some of the stuff that students kind of put together for like the lack of effort that they put in. But this should be the standard at this point.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Now let's look at the Seattle weather. Is there anything going on in the Seattle weather or the Seattle area that might preclude you from, let's say, flying as a private pilot today?
So we have some rain in the TAF that's showing up. And yeah, pretty low ceilings and rain.
Yeah, pretty low ceilings and rain. When does the low ceilings really start?
The overcast overcast.
Oh, well, yeah. So that's what's
No,
being or what time, I guess is what I'm asking.
sure. So on the, let's see, overcast 200. Well, it gets so it's at 20,000. Then it gets down to 5,000 at 2200 UTC.
Okay. Now, Seattle, it's pretty much sea level. Is that a low ceiling?
Okay. No. So then at sorry, for me, we're thinking that. So at Seattle, that next day, the first, November 1st at 0300, it's going to be at 600. So that would be pretty low. Um, so scattered, and then 1200 overcast would start to get low.
Okay. Now, is this scattered? Is this a ceiling?
No, no, it
No.
would be so the overcast is the ceiling, but still, if we're pretty much at sea level, then now we're pretty much at pattern altitude with the 1200.
Okay. Yeah. Are these published in AGL or MSL?
AGL.
AGL. Solid. Um, Now, let's say I was planning to go on a longer flight. Like, let's say you're in South Dakota. Let's say you were planning on flying down to Sun and Fun. You know, that happens in April. That's a journey. What chart
Yeah.
might give me some better information on maybe like an outlook to try and plan this journey?
Yeah, so I'd want to use the product chart for that uh, and then we can, on the bottom there, I can select times out. So I'd want to make sure that as just a big overview and over a couple of days to get a better view of what the weather's going to be like in the coming days when I start to fly back.
Awesome. So as we look over like the next 24-hour period, would today be a good day to leave if we wanted to make it to Sun and Fun? Sun and Fun's down in
Um,
Florida, if you're not aware.
Some I wasn't actually, so thank you. Um, the no, we've got some uh, high pressure, which would be um, better, but then we have quite a bit of precipitation that's coming through there. Um, and as we get to like the Iowa and Missouri section, and then we have on the way back, I'm guessing it would be we have that front or that stationary front look like there for a second.
Oh, which one are you looking at?
Yeah,
Right here?
the one that's in Wyoming and Colorado. So that one moving um, that way. So then we also have a cold front that we would be flying through from South Dakota down to Florida, which a lot of time is poor weather.
Awesome.
Or
All right. Now, can you kind of explain to me mechanically what's happening to cause this precipitation given this frontal movement?
Um, so based off of the with a um, like a cold front situation, that's usually going to be um, worse weather a lot of times because we have uplifting forces. With there's two air masses, and then with that front, that cold air mass is going to be moving very fast a lot of times and creating uh, an uplifting force, and so that's not really great for us because there's going to be a lot of wind associated with that, weather change, um, and uplifting forces.
Okay. Um, what maybe I would kind of bring up as well is like this cold front can be acting like a wedge pushing up the air mass in front of it. And that's what's
Okay.
causing that precipitation, right? The fact that that wedge is digging under, pushing it up,
Yeah.
getting it to its condensation point, and then the rain falls out of it.
Okay.
Right. Now I see these lines right here. What are these lines?
Those are isobars, and so they are that line represents lines of equal pressure, and so the closer they are together, you can kind of anticipate having windier days. The further they're apart, they're going to be less windy, less turbulent.
Awesome. Um, so far, based on how good your prep was and reading the chart, you understand your airplane, you understand your limits. We even talked about the ridiculous one if your buddy brings their kids. Um, and you're doing great. I wouldn't have any issue signing you off if you were my student for
Yeah.
the knowledge portion. I don't know how good you fly. I'm assuming fine if you convince the FSDO for a soda.
Which,
But
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying like the only thing that I would say to go and study and read is the rules of Mosaic, right? They're new privileges for you, right? And since they are new, they might be on the top of a lot of DPE's minds. I wouldn't fail you if you didn't know about them, right? Because it's not going
Okay.
like you're not going to break the law if you go, ah, crap, my medical's expired. I guess I won't fly, even though technically you could legally still fly. We would just talk about it,
Okay.
right? But I'm happy where you're at. Do you have any questions? Anything you wanted to cover? Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to get more into?
Yeah, with us doing a lot of the cross country now stuff, getting ready for kind of final check ride stuff. Um, I've had several instructors just because the length of time and those guys moving on. And everybody kind of has their different ways of entering some of the, like, we have a lot of uncontrolled airspaces in South Dakota. And so I look at the PHAC and it says, okay, when we're coming in from this side, we're going to enter a 45 for the downwind. When we go from the other side, we're going to teardrop down. And I'll have one instructor that's like, yep, that's the way you do it. And then the next instructor, like, I'll go to do that. And they're like, what in the world are you doing? Like, we want to go at field elevation or like at, not field elevation, excuse me, at uh, pattern altitude. And we want to then turn left into the downwind off of there. Your thoughts on some of that? And
I think that AIM specifically recommends a teardrop, and I think that is the appropriate manner. And I
Okay.
mean, I'm just going to be honest. Do I do a teardrop every entry into the pattern when I'm coming from across it? No. Am
Okay.
I a crappy pilot? Yes. Bad cheese pilot. But do what's safest, right? And if you can
Sure.
explain it as the safest way, right? Hey, I'm going to do a teardrop. Why am I doing a teardrop? Well, I'm 500 feet above pattern. Altitude crossing at midfield. Logically speaking, there will be nobody here. This gives me
Okay.
the opportunity to inspect the runway, look and see if there's anybody else in the traffic pattern that's either not talking on the radio or not showing up on ADSB. And then I'm at kind of like a wing break angle for a fairly long time, kind of making my aircraft more visible so that people can see me as I teardrop down and enter the pattern.
Yep.
Or this way, sorry.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Right. And
Yeah.
if you can explain it that way, the DP is like, it's a waste of time, waste of gas. Well, this is safer for me, and this is why.
Sure.
And
Okay.
also, like, hey, the AIM says do this, right? That whole left entry, I think that's, the at pattern altitude and just hook it right in. I think that's like a really old recommendation. Like, I don't think I've read a book that recommends to do that. So in case I'm wrong, I would definitely just check the AIM and see what the
Yeah, and
recommendation
that's
is from the AIM.
yeah, and that's what I saw as well. But then it's like a lot of the instructors that I have passed me. It's always fun going with a new instructor in different ways. But it's good. I've taken a lot from those guys. But yeah, that was one that consistently was different. So
Yeah. And as you go on through your training, if there's any of those discrepancies, obviously don't be a dick or anything like that. Just ask and be like, hey, like, I wasn't aware of that. Can you provide me a source so I can go home and study?
sure.
And really all this does is, like, if you are wrong, it gives you something to study. If they're wrong, it kind of shows you the kind of instructor they are.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
But yeah, other than that, I think you're doing solid, and you're gonna blow it out. You're gonna blow it out of the water. Since
No,
you did
thank
say Discord is kind of a you're kind of a Discord newbie, I'll just give you a quick little overview of Discord. Right over here, right up at the top, server stats, just everybody that's on here. General, this is exactly what it sounds like. Rules and roles request, right? So if you do get that CFI, come back in, follow the instructions right up here at the top. And we'll change your little color in the Discord, because, like, there's a bunch of other CFIs in here, and everybody helps out, right? So there's 16 other CFIs. So if you do have any questions and I'm not necessarily available, don't hesitate to come in here and ask those questions. Announcements, this is just where videos get posted. General, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's general. Any conversations, anything you want people to show up to one of these fights and cheer you on or something, drop it in there, right?
Yeah, I did. I did put one in there. What was it, 2 or 3 days ago? Because I don't know what happened, if there was like one of our F-16s was doing like a run up right next to the weather station or what. But it appeared that I had just landed in a 570 knot crosswind. So I was like, I'm calling it, guys. I'm done. So
Yeah, I have peaked. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, so you've kind of chatted along. What was it? I did see that. Yeah, right
Yeah.
there, 550 knot crosswind. I'm not sure if they typed it in wrong in the F-16s. That is hilarious. All right, we have a record for the highest crosswind. If anybody can beat this, let me know.
Yeah, there we go.
So you've kind of got the gist of what Discord is. So yeah, if you, just because you've did the mock check ride and you're doing great, as you go through instrument, as you go through any other rating, the instruction doesn't end here. If you want to chat with me, chat with other people about something you're studying, go ahead. It's that's what it's here for. That's why we use Discord, is to build a community of a bunch of people trying to learn about airplanes and learn how to fly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. You enjoy the rest of your day, man.
You too. See you later.
Bye.